Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for your attendance. We will now begin Session 6, Resilience, Promoting Decarbonization. May I kindly invite all speakers to come up to the stage. Now let me introduce our moderator and distinguished speakers. The moderator is Mr. Togo Uchida, Executive Director of ICLEI Japan Office. The distinguished speakers are Ms. Anna Lisa Boni, Deputy Mayor of Bologna, Ms. Bostian Kolitunik, Deputy Mayor of Ljubljana, Mr. Mikael Noldo, Director of Malmö, Ms. Roshena Campbell, Deputy Mayor of Melbourne, and Mr. Tevita Gadulev Taginava Burau Bosewaka, Chairman, Special Administrators, and Acting Chief Executive Officer of SUBA. Thank you very much for your attendance. And now, Mr. Uchida, if you please.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I hope you had a good sleep in a nice hotel. I think yesterday it was rainy, but today the weather is really, really nice. So I am assuming all of you are wanting to get out of this room as soon as possible. But hopefully we will have an exciting session to not bore you, and so that we will have a productive morning so that we could enjoy some sunshine in the afternoon. So my name is Togo, and I'm the Executive Director for ICLEI Japan Office. Just a very short introduction of ICLEI. We're the local government network, and we really support the local government pursuance on sustainability as much as we can. And what we do is really walk along with the city staffs, mayors, governors, senior staff of local government administration to really make them pursue sustainability as much as possible. And we intervene so that we can influence a bit to encourage more and do a little bit further in its pursuance of sustainability. And for that experience, we've been actually operating for more than 30 years in this sector. And so many things has happened. And as you well know, this GNETS meeting this year is focusing on resilience. And for the last 30 years, one thing that changed significantly is the direct impact of some of the environmental consequences that the scientists and science community has been warning us for the many decades are now coming to reality. And so I think it all makes sense for GNET and Tokyo Metropolitan Government to focus on resilience, as cities are growingly being forced or needed to be responding to these disasters in its own way. And we're not only talking about physical response, but it's a human response. How do we control, make sure that our society is bonded together in a difficult times? So yesterday you had occasion for the cities to share all these different examples of what cities are actually facing. But this morning we are taking a little bit of a different stance where we are focusing on decarbonization. So it's resilience, but it's decarbonization is our theme. And how we pursue this session is that I will ask each speakers to give a presentation first, and then we will go to the Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to start from you, Anna from Bologna. Please share us your activities in Bologna.
Okay, thank you, Togo, and thank you to the whole organizers for this really incredible event. If I'm very jet-lagged, so if I start talking about things that have nothing to do with this session, please let me know. Okay. Difficult to capture what we've done in the last years on this, on decarbonizing the city and resilience is very challenging, but I'll do my best. So we have decided to join the mission of the European Union on 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. So the name of it just is very long, but also very challenging. But we found that this has helped us a lot. So what does it mean? Now I've written European cities, but in this context, of course, it's every city. Reaching climate neutrality and working on decarbonization, and in any case about fighting climate change, it's not a project. People say, oh, what's that project about Bologna 2030? It's not a project. Stop calling it a project. It's a mission. Why? Because it's really something where you need to be led by a transformative vision, and you need to adopt a totally different approach. It's a paradigm change. You need to be, looking at the holistic approach and also how to work with everyone in the city. So it's really something different from your traditional plan or strategy and so on. And this requires a lot of investment in terms of cultural change as well in the administration and in the relation with the citizens and the city as a whole. This is just our pathway showing that resilience and adaptation are totally going hand in hand with, the climate neutrality challenge, and they need to be hand in hand all the time. It's also important to remember, as I said, it's a holistic approach, but also it's not only about reducing emissions. Reducing emissions means having so many co-benefits and so many other objectives being achieved if you, push for that. So it's climate, of course, but it's also about changing the health of the urban environment. It's about changing how you use the city. Think of, how you transform a city by including a tramway line or by putting a 30-kilometer speed limit in the city, apart from, citizens attacking you and, challenging you. But the rest is really like changing the way the city is used by people. It's, of course, socioeconomic objectives, because you will, if by pushing renewables, you will change also bills for people, and administrative. It's very boring in terms of, why administrative, but this has helped us also to use innovative tools like procurement and other types of tools. And the way we work, I mean, the different departments are working together in a totally different way from before. So it's not a single solution, it's a transformative, integrated approach that really changes things. Of course, the strategic directions are renewable, 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 renewable. I could never stop saying it, even if, we need, other types of governance, also the national governance helping us. It's not only something that you can do, apart changing your, master plans or building regulations and stuff. You need a multi-level governance for that. And of course, energy is the main issues, but also how do you work with citizens and how you work with the private sector. In this respect, having a climate city contract compared to having just a plan as before has really changed the way we work. It's really about commitment. The word contract, it's not about binding elements, because you're not going to go to prison or paying an amend if you join and don't respect the 2030 target. But it's really about the word, because words mean something. Words sound different. Words make you do things in a different way. So here it's really about co-leadership. It's about commitment of everyone. So it's not only the public administration bearing on its shoulders how to push this challenge forward. It's really about sharing the power and the responsibility. So for the first time in Bologna, we've had that. Lots of partners, lots of supporters, over 100 that have committed to the contract and to our path, our journey, with very concrete actions. So it's not only strategic, it's very concrete as well. also quantified in an investment plan. This has never happened. The investment plan is like also a business card for investors, you know. So there you know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, with whom you're going to do it, where are the gaps, where investors should invest, where, you know, things should move forward. So I see I have 1 minute, just the example of how many people, what type of people and organization are part of this contract. From the hospitals, you know, hospitals are cities in the city. If you change, if you have the commitment of hospitals, you change a lot. But also all the utilities, you have big companies like Toyota, for example, and so many other companies and supporters from the civil society to up to, you know, really national, regional governments and so on. And banks, because banks need to be enablers. Okay, I think I've gone over, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. I mean, it really struck me about the fact that you have gained the commitment from everyone in the society. I'll come back to that in the Q&A. Thank you very much for that presentation. Next, I would like to move on to Ljubljana, Deputy Mayor Bostian. Please introduce what your city has been doing.
Thank you very much. In the beginning, I would like to emphasize Ljubljana received the reward for Congress Star, but the level of organization I see here, I believe we got the award because Tokyo was not participating. So, but again, thank you for inviting me. Indeed, Ljubljana did a lot in the last 20 years or so. We are the European Green Capital of 2016. Not only that, the award ceremony or the competition goes on for 25 years, and in 2021 it received the award the best among the 20 European Green Capitals. And of course we are, together with Bologna, part of EU mission of 100 climate neutral and smart cities. And I must also add or just reaffirm it's a mission. It's not one project, a bunch of projects, it's a mission. What I would also like to reaffirm is it's about changing the culture. Let me give you an example. In Slovenia, of course, we had our own coal, right? I'm a lawyer, I can't comment on the quality of coal, but we had dirty coal, okay? And then we kind of emptied our stocks, and we went to Indonesian coal, which is much more quality, higher quality, more clean. And of course, afterwards we were looking for a solution to get energy and heating from steam gas units, okay? Of course, we had civil initiatives complaining about that, having the gas steam unit in their surrounding, even though it's much cleaner. But still, people are used to something, and every change, it's, you know, comfort zone, we push them out. And afterwards, we did receive all the, let's say, construction permits and everything. We built the gas steam unit, and afterwards, we're receiving complaints. Why? Because out of the chimney, there is no smoke, right? It's not working. You spent all the money, but now it's not working because we don't see any smoke. Of course, there's no black smoke because it's gas steam unit. It only has white smoke, and only it has it, I don't know, once a day for half an hour or twice a day for half an hour. So it's all about, you know you're doing a good thing, but you have to inform people, you have to educate people, and it's really hard if they're not motivated, if it's a political thing. Even though comparing national level and local level, it's much easier to work in the local level, as we talked yesterday in some informal surroundings, because you can always show results. It's not about, just obtaining points. What we were focusing in the last 20 years, it's about green areas, open public spaces, and of course mobility. Mobility is an issue we all like to hear it, it's a buzzword, but when you have to move by feet, on feet, or with the bicycle, it's much more problematic. Yesterday I read in the US the obesity rate is 40%. In Japan it's 5%. Why? Because the infrastructure in Japan is made for walking, you know. Of course there is also processed food, and it's not about genetics. If a Japanese person would go into the US and eat the processed food, it would still be inclined to be obese. But the infrastructure factor is really important. You have to force people, make them believe that it's better, and afterwards they don't remember the 10 years ago a lot of cars in the markets, on the streets. They can't remember that. They can't remember even their own complaints and protests about closing down the city for traffic. And that's what we did in Ljubljana. We had a project of this central, really major traffic route. We closed it down, and the same people that were protesting 10 years ago can't really remember how it was. And of course, it's a shift in the mindset, but like I said, if you're a politician, you have to just not think of what is best for the people. You have to think of what is best for the people and persuade them so that they make it internal. I'm close to the end, and the Q&A is more vivid, so I will leave the stage for the next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Bostian. Yes, we will definitely come back to the Q&A. There's so many questions I really want to ask you. So moving on to next speaker, Mikhail from Malmö. Please share your experience in Malmö, please.
Thank you and good morning. And before I begin, let me express our gratitude to the Tokyo Metropolitan Government for inviting us to GNETS and for taking such a strong leadership for cities in the green transition. And today I will not only talk about what we do in Malmö, I will also show you how we work and how we turn climate goals into real change. So just a brief introduction. Malmö is a very old city and with a very young and global population. We are located in the very south of Sweden with strong international connections that attracts both companies and talents. People in Malmö come from 187 different countries and speaks more than 150 languages. And half of our population is under the age of 35. Our private business sector is growing twice as fast as the average in Sweden. And we believe that this is no accident. We believe it's the result of being an open, welcoming, and inclusive city. So we used to be a heavy industrial city. About 30 years ago, we started a major transformation from heavy industry to a knowledge-based economy, and from industrial areas to sustainable urban districts. Since then, sustainability has not been a project, it's been part of everything we do. We work with climate goals and social inclusion at the same time. Malmö was the first city in Sweden to implement the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And today, together with Bologna and Ljubljana, we are one of the 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, appointed by the European Commission, and a resilience hub within the UN system. We have clear targets, 100% renewable energy supply and net zero emissions from the organization by 2030, and a 70% reduction of total CO2 emissions by 2030 compared to the 1990s level. So let me give you two examples. In Malmö, we believe that cities do not transform alone, they transform together with others. First, BID Malmö. This is a local partnership where property owners, companies, citizens, and the city work together in specific areas. And the focus is not only business, it's also safety, trust, ecological and social sustainability. The other example is LFM 30, Local Roadmap Malmö 2030. Here, the city works together with more than 200 companies to make the entire building and construction sector climate neutral by 2030. It's not just a plan, it's a shared commitment with clear goals and a common tools. And we believe that when cities and companies work together in a structured way, real change becomes possible. And now we are taking the next step in Malmö. To solve today's challenges, we need to rethink how we work, we need to remake our models, and we need the courage to reimagine the future. So this is why we are building Malmö Generate District. It's an innovation district for sustainable solutions, a place where ideas can be tested, developed, and scaled. We reuse existing buildings and spaces and turn them into living labs and test beds. So the district is built on 3 simple layers. First, the digital layer, making knowledge, people, and opportunities visible and easy to access. Second, the physical layer, creating places where companies, researchers, and the city can meet and work together. And third, the interpersonal layer, actively bringing people together across sectors and backgrounds. Because we think when different perspective meets, new ideas can grow and innovation can be fostered. And this is how we move from a project to a system for innovation. So to sum up, Malmö has worked with sustainability for a very long time. We have set clear goals and we work closely together with the private sector. Again, cities do not transform through targets alone. They transform through collaboration. And in Malmö, we are now building a new system for that collaboration. We do not have all the answers, but as we say in Sweden, we have a system, and we're here to listen, to learn, and to refine that model and that system and our work ahead together with you. Thank you.
Mikael-san, thank you so much for that presentation. Now I would like to move on to Deputy Lord Mayor Roshner from Melbourne. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can I start by saying what an absolute honour it is to be here with all of you, and also to add my thanks to the Tokyo Metropolitan Government for bringing us all together. As city leaders, we know that we are on the front line of the climate crisis. We are the biggest emitters in the world, but we are also the ones leading on climate action. Now, in cities like Melbourne, we are accelerating our plans for decarbonisation. We have committed to be 100% powered by renewable energy by 2030. We already power our major municipal buildings in the City of Melbourne with 100% renewables. We have committed to becoming a garden city with 40% tree canopy by 2030. And with buildings contributing up to 66% of carbon emissions in Melbourne, we have done the planning work to make sure that future developments are built sustainably and that existing buildings are retrofitted or adaptively reused instead of being demolished. But everything that I've talked about is about meeting the existing challenges facing cities. And since we started to do that work, something has changed significantly, and that is the rise of data centres. So that is what I would like to speak to you about today, how we are working to meet the challenges that they pose to achieving net zero emissions. Now, at the C40 Summit, the summit of capital cities that was held in Rio in the lead up to COP30, I know many of you in this room are part of C40, and I thank you for your leadership. Our Lord Mayor, along with a number of other capital cities, agreed to work together to harness their shared power, to strike agreement, to make sure that global cities are working together to reduce the environmental impact of data centres. And I want to explain to you why that is such an important commitment and such a difficult challenge for all of us. We know that data centres are growing rapidly. Having gone to Sushi Tech yesterday, we all know that is great for innovation, but it's not great for the climate. With demand for data centres only increasing with the growth of AI, There are already around 70 in Melbourne, around 1,700 data centres in C40 cities. And what we all know is that they have huge demands on energy, on water, and pose significant impacts on emissions. A single 150 megawatt facility uses around 8 megalitres of water a day. That's more than 3 Olympic swimming pools worth. Our national modelling shows that data centres will account for around 12% of Australia, the entire country's energy use, by 2040. And on top of that, we know that they place enormous pressure on land, which in capital cities is already under significant pressure for other purposes, be that housing or other economic uses. Of course, the other difficulty we have is that data centres consume a lot of energy and carbon-heavy resources to be built. And at the end of their life, little thought has been given to how they will be repurposed, whether they will be suitable for adaptive reuse. So I wanted to talk about some of the opportunities we're exploring, and this is very much a discussion about opportunities and challenges, given this is a challenge we are all now confronting. Firstly, it is critical that data centres are built in a way that is aligned with net zero emission pathways. And what is clear is that many countries, many capitals have not turned their mind to that energy and environmental impact. That's why the global C40 city signed the pact to make sure that data centres are built in a way that is focused on renewables, that is resource efficient. But it's also important to explore other opportunities. How can we make sure we are capturing and reusing energy and water from these data centres to mitigate the environmental impacts? And what about the buildings themselves? How can they be greened? How can they be built in a sustainable way? And how can we ensure that when they one day become redundant, they are suitable to be repurposed to serve the community in another way? So I wanted to talk a bit more locally now. The picture before you is of Fisherman's Bend. It's of Melbourne's, and in fact Australia's, largest urban renewal project, 480 hectares in the heart of Melbourne. It'll be home to approximately 80,000 residents and provide employment to even more people than that. And it is already a data centre hotspot. It highlights the problems facing cities like Melbourne, where data centres are being approved, are being built, but the framework does not yet exist to make sure the environmental impacts are mitigated. That is why we are challenging those in Australia and those globally to turn their minds to how we set up planning frameworks to mitigate that environmental impact. I wanted to close with a bit of hope. I do think if we do this work now, the future will be very bright, that we do have the capacity to mitigate the carbon emissions, the water impacts, the energy impacts of data centres. But if we don't do this thinking now, there is no doubt the environmental impacts will be immense. So this is our chance to pull our collective knowledge and ambition to make sure that we achieve good outcomes, not just for innovation, but also for the environment as we all face this challenge together. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor, thank you very much for that presentation. Now, I would like to move on to Suva City. Chairman Special Administrators and Acting Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Tevita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, Suva City is in Fiji, in the Fiji Islands, and Fiji Islands is in the Pacific. Just about 3.5 hours flight to Melbourne, and about 2 hours, 15 minutes to Auckland. There are about 300 islands in Fiji, only about 100 are inhabited. For Suva City, there's only about 100,000 people at this stage. So that's more or less about Fiji and Suva City. For us in Fiji, and I believe like most of you, we are taking a multi-level approach when we deal with climate change or decarbonization. This multi-level approach, it's from the global level, as you know, we're taking a clue from the SDGs and also the Paris Agreement, and thereafter, then we move down to the national government and the local government, which is the city and other towns. So Suva and of course Fiji is very vulnerable to climate change because of its smallness. And since it's a small country, we are exposed to sea level rise, cyclones of increasing intensity, and flooding in most cases, and it's quite severe. I hope I'm on the right track. So when we develop this Fiji low emissions development strategy, that comes from the Paris Agreement, where you are required, when you're required to determine your own level of reduction in the decarbonization, we really needed to develop a low emission development strategy, and that's what we have done. So with this, we really needed to take a very strategic approach, step by step, and we determine what is best. And you will note there that we have taken these 4 approaches: business as usual, unconditional scenario, where everything is normal, just normal. And then we take a bio-conditional scenario with some special funding. The third one, a high ambition scenario with some external funding. And 4, a very high ambition scenario where we are very innovative with policies, with our ambitions, etc., etc. So after extensive these stakeholder consultations, analysis and modeling of different scenarios for each one, so we saw that the very high ambition scenario, net zero emissions, can be achieved during the year 2041. And the table shows, there you will note from 2025, there's some slight reduction for high ambition and quite significant for very high ambition from 20 to 25. And we know that the trend will continue if we go up to 2050. So by 2050, there will be zero carbon emissions. Now, just looking at Fiji, as I mentioned, we are just looking at every level. When we look at Fiji's climate commitments, we've noted that 36%, sorry, there's reduction by 36% for greenhouse gas by 2035. We know that by 2035, it can reduce by 36%. And the renewable electricity target will be 100% by 2035. Now, the electricity already from renewables, it's 53%, already 53. And in 2041, we hope to have this net zero achievable under this very high ambition scenario. So that's from the national context, Fiji's context, or Fiji's level as a nation. Now, we move down to Suva City. What are we doing? So we have developed a VLR in last year. VLR means the voluntary local review. It's the first in the Pacific that we developed this. It's more or less aligning our plans to the Sustainable Development Goals. So after developing this last year with the help of UNESCO, we are now ready and just about finalizing this week the annual, the 5-year corporate plan, 5-year strategic development plan. And it captures all this, and very important, it includes climate change and decarbonization. So that's what we have done, and we are committing to all what is required to be done to contain climate change. In the Suva Cities context, the climate reality facing Fiji, as I mentioned, we have also done through Stinson Center and Ocean Policy Research Institution of Sasakawa Peace Foundation. They came up with a climate and ocean risk vulnerability index, the COVI for Suva. And from their findings, Suva is on high risk in terms of ecology, in terms of finance, and the political risk. It ranges from 5.5 to 7% high risk. There it goes. Then Suva, as been mentioned, is a major city in Fiji, and it's a high carbon emitter in Fiji's standard. So under the VLR, as I mentioned, and under the 5-year strategic development plan from 26 to 2030, it aims to reduce carbon emission through electricity generation, transport, waste management, waste minimization, and management. So for one, in terms of electricity, we are promoting rooftop solar PV through donors and special arrangements with banks and the ministries and other agencies. This is through Strategic Development Plan SDG 17 on partnership. On the transport, on what we have done on transport.
Mr. Tevita, consideration of the time.
Yes.
Could we possibly wrap up, and maybe I'll come back to you on the questions to ask a little bit more of what you are doing specifically in the city. Would that be okay?
Okay, just one minute to round it up.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. The other one is just the sustainable transport actions on electrical vehicles, EV adoption, non-motorized transport, and clean maritime links. On waste management, we have zero waste program, green and blue infrastructure, coastal mangrove restoration, clean water, sanitation. And to implement this, we need to be united and work together under this partnership SDG 17. Thank you. Good luck.
Mr. Tevita, thank you so much, and I apologize for making you rush because we have a limited time. But thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. So I would like to move on to the Q&A session, and we will go along the same way as the presentation was conducted. So pointing to you, Anna, first from Bologna. What struck me from your presentation that you mentioned that this is not a project, this is a mission, and I think others also mentioned in similar ways. I want to ask you, how did you make this happen? And you mentioned how it is difficult, and you have to involve all citizens' participation. I just wanted to ask how that was possible, and how did you promote that in your city?
Okay, it was kind of easy to get a lot of, organizations, of course. As in 4 years, 3-4 years, we managed to get over 100, the biggest, the smallest. But the most important was also to have citizens on board. As a city, we have, always given, we have traditionally given a lot of energy and space to citizens' engagement, because we believe it's really part of governing the city. But in this respect, we've taken a commitment that is very strong and very, I think, unique in Europe, but I don't think in the world, I don't know, but still, on citizens' assemblies. Everyone has one, a lot of cities have experiences with citizens' assemblies, but we wanted to do a bit more. We decided to embed the body Citizens' Assembly in our municipal statutes. So you have the city council, you have the city board, you have all these bodies that are there by municipal, regulation, but we've included also a citizens' assembly. This one can be activated by 5,000 citizens or by the majority of councillors, but it's in there, okay? So we made it structural. And one we've had in the last 2 years is the one on climate and energy. So the idea of citizens' assemblies is that they need to be based on a very solid methodology. People are extracted randomly, but with a very clear, methodology behind, in terms of having really a strong representation of the city diversity and differences. So in terms of residents, in terms of age, in terms of gender. We've also included 20% of so-called city users. So people who use public transport, even if they don't live in Bologna, and also students. We have, 70,000 students in the city. So that has really made the sort of on climate, we did it. So people spent 6 months going through so-called learning process, but not established by us, but by a committee, independent committee. There is different committees. It's quite complex, but at least it's solid. So guarantee committee that the democratic process is happening correctly on the program. And so all these people selected, 87 survived because some people couldn't do it. We paid also the people who participated, like the fee of a city councillor. And in the end of the 6 months, they went through a process and then deliberated, a big volume of proposals that then they discussed with the city councils, and we included them in our program, in our work program. The stuff that was in our competence, of course, because if there was stuff that, we can't do, like if it's a national competence, then we didn't decide to adopt it. So that is really the way, if you want to get your citizens on board, the only way is to have them participate in an authentic and deep and very strong way. Okay, thank you.
I mean, just from the curiosity, this citizens' assembly, did you encounter any kind of opposition from the councillors itself? Because councillors are representing citizens. And is it a one-shot thing, or is it continuous?
Well, it took many years to get to this idea and to have it approved. It came from the climate emergency declaration that the city adopted even in 2021, before our mandate started. And then we saw from a lot of associations in the cities who pushed for it, and so it demanded a sort of fight inside the council, but the majority won and was in favor, because they understand that representative democracy needs to go, hands in hand, and also be complemented by participation and deliberation democracy. It makes democracy as a whole stronger.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Deputy Mayor Bostean, and thank you for your cooperation in presentation. You had very interesting slides that it would be nice if we could have time for you to present, but apologize for that. But your city has been nominated as Green Capital of Europe. And what I would like to ask is, what was the original motivation of the city to pursue and take that bold movement in the city?
Well, I have to be honest, I'm in the city management for running the 4th year, and our mayor is there for 20 years. So it was a process. As I've heard, as I've noticed, it became the first awards 15 years ago came more or less spontaneously. And afterwards, it was kind of a competition between departments also, you know, to prove themselves, to gain. It was a positive competition, of course, and our mayor is kind of management by walking and cooperation, and it kind of, we saw that we're actually receiving acknowledgement, and afterwards it was kind of natural to aim for the highest award. And of course we have to be honest, it's always easier to build greenfield investment than to, you know, refurbish, reconstruct. And if you have a low standard when you begin the term, it's much easier to improve and get results, right? Now it's a cultural thing within the city administration. If there's a possibility to obtain foreign or domestic acknowledgement, to have standards, why would you make up standards if they already exist? So that was kind of a way.
No, fantastic. I mean, you made a bold movement, and I like when you mentioned about how it's becoming a culture now, so gradually getting support from people understanding. From that note, so you have made the city center, like 19 hectares of the city center as in pedestrian zone. And I think that's a big impact for local economy as well. Can you tell us a bit more about how the citizens reacted to that and how they are living on that now? I mean, are they happy with this?
Well, now they're happy. In the beginning, they weren't. There were, let's say, civil initiatives, protests. They were asserting that the local shops will die out and things like that. Of course, the inhabitants had a lot of problems if you close down it's a vast city center, right? But we kind of went through it. We implemented free service of, it's called Cavalier, little green electric cars that help citizens or visitors. They drive them around within the pedestrian zone, free of charge. You just call the Cavalier guy, and it also became a kind of a social cohesion thing, because all the drivers now know the elderly. They drive them to the market, back. They know where they live. If we have an issue, I know who's the owner of a building, we have a name, we ask the drivers, and they know where they live, even though, you know, they're not registered at that address. So we kind of showed that it's not about money earning, it's about their quality of life. And of course, the tourist impact was enormous. Now we're getting to the second stage, too many tourists to be sustainable. So that's, you know, it was a sweet worry, not anymore. So, but it's a process.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of cities can understand the difficult maneuvering process that you have actually gone through, but that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that example. Mikhail, so Malmö, as some of you may know, the mayor of Malmö is the president of ICLE, so we have a very strong connection with Malmö. In your presentation, you mentioned about Generate District. As a leading city, I just wanted to ask, what was the driver for the city to come up with this concept? Can you share us a bit more about that?
Thank you. I think for the city of Malmö, the transformation to a modern city, a knowledge-based economy started like 25, 30 years ago. And so we noticed some years ago that many of the institutions we created by then were still functioning, were still doing a great job, but we thought it was time for the next level to do something more together, because we have Mink, the startup house of Malmö, so we have different incubators, science park, the former high school became a university. So what's the next step for doing this? So that was one of the drivers. So how could we leverage this? Also, not being the capital city, in the startups and the scale-ups are quite often in lack of capital. So this was also one of the driving forces to do more together to attract more capital to our scale-ups and startups. in the city. And then, of course, we love all investments, all innovative companies in Malmö, but from the city perspective, it's really important that we support the innovation and the companies that are helping us to solve the global challenges. So within Malmö General District, we are focusing much on companies and innovation that create an impact, to have like a solution for the ecological situation or the economic situation or the social situation. So that's like one in the DNA of Malmö General District, to focus on the impact investment and impact companies, I would say.
No, thank you very much. I think it's very strong language, but very impactful, and I think it has a power to draw private companies' imagination. And as you say, it might be good a word, mission statement that draws interest of private investment in Malmö. Thank you very much for sharing that. One more question. As a president of ICRE, you play also as a city that represents global local governments. As everyone here knows, the current global international challenge that we all face. Could you perhaps share us what kind of role that cities could take in this current very much turbulent international situation?
Well, this is one really good example that Tokyo has initiated, and I think that, as you said, the turbulent or the current situation at the national levels are a bit problematic, and the transformation to a more sustainable society is really challenged today. And working at the local level, we know that it's much of the transformation is done at the local level. So I think we together have to continue our work on the social, on the sustainable development, but also together be strong in advocating that we need the resources, we need a mandate, and it has to be outspoken that the city and the local level has a right to be at the tables when decisions are taken. I think that's really, really important. So as our mayor being the president of the ICLE is, of course, one of the prioritizing for Malmö to be here and to be on other arenas to raise the awareness of the local level.
Thank you very much. I think what we have been hearing is that local government, Anna, you mentioned about protecting democracy and strengthening democracy, and how local governments can actually play a very proactive role in this, and economic revitalization or vitalization to really kick this, create a new culture for the people to support. And I think the local government really plays that really important role in this. So Deputy Lord Mayor Rashna, you mentioned about a data center, and as we all know, it's a very necessary technology in the coming decades. But you mentioned about the difficulty, because if you don't control it properly, it could harm climate. So I really like what you selected this presentation for this occasion. What I would like to ask is that, given that sensitivity somewhat, did you receive any kind of opposition or complaints when the cities decided to move forward in this project?
So I do think it's very interesting that this leadership has come from the city level, that it came out at the C40 conference in the lead up to COP. It hasn't come out in the same way from the national government level or the state government level. To the contrary, in Australia, the state government is very focused on the economic benefits of data centres. They have streamlined and fast-tracked planning approvals for data centres, so they don't go through the normal procedures for any other development, because our state government has decided that they are the economic future. And what we are saying is it is important to pause, to consider those long-term environmental impacts. We know that data centres are energy hungry, and yet there is no framework requiring them to use 100% renewables. We know they are water hungry, yet nothing is compelling them to reuse that water. And we also know that ultimately they will become obsolete. And we all know the cost of either demolishing or adaptive reuse of a building that is not set up for that purpose. So this is absolutely the moment in time for us all to pause and think what is the ideal planning framework to make sure we are mitigating those environmental impacts and making sure that we're not all looking at these giant boxes built across our cities in decades to come and saying, what on earth did we do wrong here?
Thank you so much. I mean, I think we're coming with the same message. I think it's not about stopping these things, but it's about benefiting from it in the right way. And maybe the cities have the balanced kind of view and access to people's voice so that we can make the project better and make sense for sustainability. Thank you so much. And one more thing, you mandate companies to report, and you mentioned about that. As a process, how do you do that?
So, I mean, that is not something that has happened yet, but we have suggested that is something that should be required, that large tech companies should be required to report on their energy use and the steps they are taking to make sure they're consistent with net zero and, in fact, go well beyond that to achieve good environmental outcomes. But we also know that is incredibly difficult with large tech companies in a very different space. Australia recently made it illegal for those under 16 to use social media accounts. And the work that was required to get tech companies on side with that legislation was extraordinary and is still an ongoing battle. So I don't pretend for a moment that anything that requires communities and government to work with big tech is an easy path, but it is absolutely a path we need to be walking if we want to achieve the best outcomes.
Thank you very much. Now, moving on to Mr. Tevita. You mentioned about the Fiji's government target and how Suva City is playing a very important role. Could you explain a bit more about how you are going to achieve this renewable energy target that you mentioned in your presentation?
Thank you. First of all, we need to see that the funding, climate funding, is leveraged, internal and also from the external donors. Secondly, we need to look at the policies. We need to revise some bylaws for the city and the policies that will support the technical changes and other changes that are coming aboard. For example, on green buildings, on waste management, most of our laws are archaic, so they need to be changed. And thirdly, the need to improve on our database. I think that's very important so that we can make evidence and good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think a country like you are making a bold actions towards mitigation itself is a very strong message for international community to go and support what you're doing in your city. So thank you so much for that. I was hoping to go through another round, but I think we're running out of time. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think it was very informative. So that concludes our session. Please send a big applause to recognize the contribution by the speakers. Thank you very much for your...
Thank you very much, everyone. And we will now proceed to the photo session. So may I kindly ask all speakers to gather at the center of the stage. Thank you very much. And this concludes the photo session. So please give a round of applause to speakers and moderators. Thank you very much.